Hi, I'm Bright. Today I'm going to be talking about the Royal Enfield Hunter 350 motorcycle. I recently, back in the summer, so maybe not that recently now, compared the classic 350 and the Meteor 350 from the range. So I was really excited to see how this compared. I'm currently riding on an A2 motorcycle licence in the UK, which it's a little bit complicated how it works, and it did take me a while to get my head around it. But essentially, I was 22 when I took my full motorcycle licence test, which is your Module 1, your Module 2, which has the off and on-road components. Because I was under 24 when I took that test, it meant that my licence was restricted to 47 horsepower until I turned 24 and upgrade it. As I'm now 24, I've booked my test to upgrade to my full licence, which will then remove my horsepower limit. So the sky is then the limit as far as motorbikes go. But at the moment, I've been really enjoying testing some of the slightly lower powered, smaller bikes, particularly the Hunter 350. So before we get into the details of the bike, what I like, what I don't, if I would own one or not, I want to give a couple of very quick shout outs. Firstly, to Moto Girl. I've been riding throughout the winter, and to be honest, my riding wardrobe needed a big upgrade in terms of everything, to be honest, and they really kindly supplied me with a whole new outfit which I'm wearing today. So I've got on the Daisy dungarees, and I've also got on the Fiona jacket. Each of these are fully protective and armoured in the joints, so I've got hip and knee armour as well as elbow and shoulders, and they're so comfortable, go perfectly with the modern classic and also with my classic bike as well. So big thank you to Moto Girl for their help with that. Also, a shout out I wanted to give was to Lightlock. They've kindly sent me this lock to test out, which is really strong and lightweight, and I've been using it for storing the Hunter in the garage over the, what must it have been, 8 weeks that I've been riding this bike, and it's been fantastic so far. So definitely go and check them out if you've not heard of them before. So we'll start with the positives for the bike, and to be honest, there are loads. It comes in at a fantastic price point. So there's two different sets of colourways. This, I believe, is called the Dapper Grey. All of the colourways come in just under £4,000. And to be honest, as you're going to hear, you get quite a lot of bike for your money. So start at a really good price point. As I mentioned, being on an A2 licence, they're also A2 licence compliant. And to be honest, I personally feel that 350s are such an underrated size. I really wish if I could go back in time after I had upgraded my licence and gone from a 125, I wish I'd spent sort of a year on something like this. What was I going to say? What it has done for my confidence, essentially, has been absolutely amazing with riding. It has truly been just a fantastic thing to learn on. It's taught me so much, and having a bike that is so easy to ride and you feel so in control of is such a fantastic thing to have when you're early on in your riding journey, or even later on in your riding journey if you want something nice and easy. So in comparison to the Classic and the Meteor, they do all actually have the same engine. So it's 20 brake horsepower, which isn't particularly gutsy, I'll be honest, but it's a 350, so that's what we expect. However, having said this, this is designed and marketed to be really good with its torque, and it's definitely got that pull. You notice, you're going up a hill, tried it out in the wrong gear and stuff, you still really got that power to get you where you want to go in that sense. So really good in terms of its torque. The speed, given that it's a 350, it does have a speed, sort of a top speed of 70 mile per hour, according to the website. And of course, I wouldn't go over 70 mile an hour because that is the highest speed limit we have here. So it sits fine at 70, although personally I do feel on a dual carriageway or a motorway it is more comfortable sitting at 60, so I did tend to do that for the majority of the time. Having said that, below the 70 mile an hour speed limit, so anywhere sort of up to about a 60, it handles absolutely fantastically. So it's got a sportier frame than the other two 350 motorcycles from Royal Enfield. So You can see as part of the design, it is really designed to handle well, and all of the details do lend to that. So with the Classic 350, it's got a 19-inch front wheel and an 18-inch rear wheel. And on the Hunter, it's got 17-inch on the front and the rear. And that is so noticeable when you are cornering. This bike corners like nothing I've ever ridden. It is so easy to ride, so much fun in the corners. And every time I get it out, I'm always surprised at just how much fun it has. Fantastic for cornering and handling. So speaking of the wheels, the tyres as well, something I like, they are tubeless, so you can't get a puncture, which is always a bonus for me. As much as this is designed as a bit of a city bike, I live in the countryside, and there are stones, gravel, potholes and things all over the place, so that is a massive thumbs up in my eyes. Another great thing, living in the countryside, we don't have as many petrol stations as they do in the city, and this has got fantastic fuel economy as well. I can't even remember when I last had to fill this up. It does fantastically well on the fuel economy, so really good value for money in that sense as a running cost. Something else I like as well, I'm not massively short, to be honest. I'm 5'6", but it's incredibly comfortable height-wise, so I'll show you on the bike. I'm just going to pop the lock on the floor so I don't knock it over. And you can see here, I'm just going to take it off of the side stand. And you can see there where my feet are. My legs are actually bent, so I've got plenty of room for sort of manoeuvring it around. It's very comfortable and lightweight as well. That is something to mention as well in comparison to the Classic and the Meteor bikes, is that this is actually the lightest of the three, and that's definitely noticeable when you're riding around. It just adds into how fantastically well it handles. When I was riding the Interceptor, something that I wasn't super keen on was the side stand. I felt like it lent the bike a really long way, which with such a heavy bike wasn't particularly convenient and would make me a little bit nervous whenever I put it on the side stand on the off chance it was going to drop. It also didn't feel quite as, I suppose, solid a side stand as this one, and you'll see what I mean when I show you now. So the side stand kicks out with quite some force, and it doesn't lean the bike very far at all, so it makes it incredibly easy to use, and you don't have to yank the bike upright when you get back on. So I'll show you how that works now. As you can see, it hasn't leant very far at all. It's still basically upright, and it's on the side stand as well, which is fantastic. So that is a really good plus point for me here. A couple of other really good things that I like about this are just how ergonomic and easy to use it is, and they've really thought about the user when they've built these things in. So this particular model doesn't have one, just this spec bike, but they do have the tripper option as well if you wanted to add it. And I remember lots of you commented on the other video that there were options similar to the tripper that you could add onto the bike as well, and there's the space to do that they've left here, so that is really useful as an option. There's also this USB charging port here, so it just flicks up with a little cover, really easy to get to, and if you're using some kind of phone mount on your handlebars, then that would be super easy for keeping it all charged up. So that was really nice to see as well. So something I've mentioned in a couple of the previous reviews that I did is that I personally haven't ever taken a pillion passenger, and that remains true to this day. However, they've definitely built this with that option in mind, so it looks perfectly comfortable enough to take a pillion passenger. The front seat of this, it's very squishy and it's very comfortable even on quite long rides. I've ridden this for multiple hours at a time, never found it uncomfortable, and equally there's good option for bringing a pillion passenger as well. So there's loads of fantastic things on this bike, but I think that wraps up the majority of my pros list. So we're on to a very tiny list of things that I would see as being a bit of a downside in my eyes, and they are really small. So one of them, still here on the back of the bike, is these pillion grab handles. So these metal handles here, really nicely shaped again for a pillion. But as I've mentioned, I don't take one and I like to put my bag on the back. It's a bit harder to attach your bag given the shape of how these work, but not too much of an issue. However, I actually use one of these small Boss alarm locks, which looks like a padlock and is about this big in size. So rather than put that into a backpack, for example, given that it's quite heavy, I really just like to attach it onto my bike when I'm riding so that it's there and I'm not going to forget to put it on my bike when I park. However, because these don't go all the way around and join at the back, it means I can't put the lock on without the risk of it falling off. So that is a very, very tiny negative that I found with this bike. Okay, and the final negative, and I suppose, I mean, it's a personal opinion, this one, so not everyone is going to agree with me here, and that's absolutely fine. This is just down to personal taste. I find that this bike, rather than being so much of a modern classic, is a lot more of a modern retro bike. It's designed, and I think it's marketed as having urban in mind. It's a city style bike, and it is a lot more modern than other bikes that I'm interested in. Many of you will know by now that I ride in a 1950s BSA Bantam D1, which of course is a classic, and I'm a big fan of classic motorcycles. So with this, it's definitely a little bit modern for my taste, and I think that is my big reservation with this bike, which for many people, of course, that's not going to be an issue. But I think something for me that would change a little bit of the way of how I felt with it is the tank design. So at the moment there are a few different options of tank design, and unlike with the Interceptor and the Classic and the Meteor even, I wasn't able to really pick a favourite. I found it quite hard to settle on any of them that I would choose for my own bike. Again, they're all just quite modern looking. Having said that, this bike is incredibly similar to the Triumph Street Twin in its styling and its shape. And if you look at them side by side, there are definitely some very big similarities there. And I think the way that they've done some of their designs and styling can nod a little bit more to a modern classic rather than a modern retro. So I think with a bit of a different tank design, perhaps a custom one I might go for if I were to have this bike for myself, that would tip it in the direction of being something that I absolutely loved. It's been very hard to come up with any negatives aside from that, to be honest, because the way it rides really lets me overlook any of those things. It rides fantastically. It corners and handles like no bike I've ever ridden, and it's super lightweight and easy to chuck around. So I enjoyed it a lot, and I think in that sense I actually enjoyed it more than the Classic and the Meteor, purely on the way it handles and rides. So I've had an absolutely fantastic time with this bike, and I think you get a lot of bike for your money. So if this is something that the design ticks your boxes, then it's a huge thumbs up from me, and I would really recommend one. So a massive thank you to Royal Enfield for the opportunity to ride and test this bike. As you'll have heard, I've had a brilliant time with it, and thank you all for watching.